That's dangerous. But without it, we're not going to get through. And yes, it's only black coffee. Good morning. And again, I want to thank you. I want to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak to this group this morning. And actually, I find it quite humbling, and I really mean this, because this audience is comprised of some really, really great people in our business. And I've had the pleasure of knowing a lot of you for many decades. And believe me, without folks like you, I would have gotten nowhere. So it's all about people as far as I'm concerned. And what a pleasure to reconnect with some of you in this room. Many of you I don't know. I'm maybe one or two generations ahead of you, but enjoy, keep your folks moving, and you'll have a great, great career and a great business. This morning, I want to talk about the basic, the question was, would I talk about PAN turnaround? What is PAN? As I realized this morning going through my notes, I've started kind of in the middle of the journey of PAN. PAN was a project in which I was first involved about 2009, 2010. Roger Newell, Dr. Roger Newell, gave me a call and said, hey, would you take a look at this project? I'm with a company. I sit on the board of a company called Midway Gold, and we'd like to get into production in Nevada and so on. And we have these assets. So I looked at the assets and I thought, what in the hell would you try to put this in production for? This was in 2009. So I then did a little scratch pad, yellow paper. That's going to help a lot. Thank you. And I said, holy cow, at today's gold prices, this thing can make a buck. So bottom line, I took a look at it as a consultant to Midway Group, eventually became COO of Midway Group, eventually became CEO of Midway Group. And we raised a few $100 million and made some stuff happen. It was during that journey, and we put what basically was the final financial equity piece together, that we took a sidebar. And that trip took us, and I would argue took that set of assets down the wrong road. We wound up with, in my view, financial guys that talked mining but didn't understand mining. And we are not a .com. They were very, very successful in the .com business. I hope they're still successful today. But we don't make a mine in 12 months. And that kind of disparity in thinking, I think, is really the bottom line crux of what happened. What happened to the Midway assets? What happened? What caused those assets to basically be available from a bankruptcy in 2015 or 2016? I can't remember exactly which year. I have the luxury of a good memory. It's just short. Anyway, that's kind of a little background. So I had allegedly retired at that point in time when I left Midway in whatever the hell it was, 13, 14, I don't remember. But I always kept my mind on stuff. I always kept a spare LLC around available. I always kept a spare checking account around available, because you don't put those things in place very quickly. If you decided to, or if I decided I wanted to do something, I wanted to be able to do it quickly. And quick is, I think, I'm not a patient fellow, I'm a perseverant fellow. So there is a big difference. So anyway, the assets became available. I got some phone calls. I was actually in my wood shop making some things. And I thought, heck, why not try this? Well, okay, my friend, where do I point it? I do have another slide. Anyway, can you give me a hand with this advancement, please? I better quit pushing buttons or I'll set us back. Anyway, I'll continue. As I said, I was starting to get some calls about the assets and so on. So then I thought, let's get this doing. I'm going to take a serious run and take a look at these assets and what they do and what we can do with them. So I started talking to some people about it, and I got some interesting responses. And some of those responses were, are you crazy? What the hell are you doing? Over 70 companies have looked at these assets and they've turned them down. Why do you think you can do this? And the bottom line was, I said, okay, are you ready to run? Anyway, the bottom line was, I said, okay, let's do this. So what we did, I put together basically a group of people, and we started looking at them. I liked what I saw. I felt I knew the assets quite well. I felt that the assets could form the basis of a multi-tier, mid-tier mining company, of a profitable one. And I said, let's go get them. The assets had failed for many reasons, and we felt we knew what some of those reasons were. So I believe, again, a good team, a good set of people, we could make this thing happen. So basically what we did, we went into the information available, analyzed what we could see from the data, developed a plan and a budget and a schedule of items we felt we needed to do to turn these assets around. And then we implemented. We went, basically I hired a law firm, picked up a good law firm to advise us on bankruptcy acquisitions or acquisitions from thereof. Put together a 363 sale, which is a very important demarcation, if you will, or notation of a sale, because basically you're the stalking horse. And we put a bid in that if someone topped, we would have gotten back the monies we spent preparing to put that bid in. So while we had a few $100,000 of at-risk money, we would get at least a good share of that money back if we had failed, if someone had overtopped our bid. Fortunately for us, no one did. Excuse me. So we had the assets. Well, having them without working capital wasn't going to be any good. So at the same time that we raised the $5.25 million to bring the assets to our stable, we also raised another 12, 13 million of working capital. That allowed us to then implement our plans. I'm going to see if I can flip through some slides. I was going to have a cautionary statement because I want you to know I've raised a lot of money in my life, and I speak to groups raising money, and I want you to know I'm not raising a dime in this one. I don't intend to. So please bear that in mind. If you want to invest in Calibre or anything else, it's all yours. If you could just hit the next slide for me, I'll give you the word. Okay, and this is what I had to do to find out, was I crazy? So I actually did have some brain waves and so on. And so other people decided, hey, let's go on. I can skip through these next couple, please. You can skip. There you go. And there you stop, if you would. I'm going to see if this works. Anyway, so as I said, we raised the money. We started getting things going. We felt we knew what to do to fix it. We basically, the first thing you need is people, as I've told you. So we had a good team of people. We had a hey, it's not just the operator. And I've been a bad operator, as some of you know. Anyway, so we had a pre-purchase group, myself, Ross McLean, who had worked with me in my Newmont life and a couple other lives at different times. And our middle son, Eric, who's a CM, construction management, project management, MBA type. And they didn't think I was nuts when we got done with all the analysis. So we said, let's do it. So then immediately upon picking up the assets, I put together the rest of the team. And I mean, immediately, like 15 minutes after I got out of the courthouse with the assets, I was on the phone putting people together. Obviously, we had pre-conversations, but then we cemented it. And I was lucky, Andy Britton, who is, I think, one of the best managers going out there, and as far as at least heap leach operations is concerned, agreed to take it. I brought back an old CFO of mine, Fritz Schaudies, the Teresa Gustine, Tom Williams for the environmental. So basically, we just had a good group of people who were working together and who would cross lines and all dig in to not be siloed in a discipline, but if something had to get done, they were out there doing it. And that's what it took. And then later on, a couple of guys joined me that had been, Brett McDermott was my controller at one of my other companies. He came in, and then Jim Wilburn, who was legal advisor, came in. We really just coupled good assets with good people. It sounds simple. And that combination really allowed us to turn things around. We created operational expectations. We changed them. We immediately went to site. We installed a can-do attitude. We became inclusive. I like to be inclusive. I don't candidly like to stand up in front of a group. I'd rather be out there talking to each of you. And we put in operational expectations. Thank you. Hey, we're going to do it. Pardon me. I'm sorry to get back here, but I got to find my spot. So, all right. And then basically I would argue, just put in good operating practices, good discipline, and we saw some immediate turnarounds. What did we do? Immediate actions. Basically, we all went to site, spent our time right next to each of the operators. We developed, as I said, the operating practices and picked the opportunities to make the most money or cut the losses, actually, the quickest. And some of the most simple things we were able to do literally the first day we were on site. Titration of cyanide in the Barren, or in the Preg rather, was something no one had done out there. There were no AAs on site to measure solution flow at the time. Just simple stuff that, come on guys, let's get going. So we had a lot of those. The heap leach pad was the biggest issue. And when we bought the assets, we were told that the heap leach pad was geotechnically unstable and that it was going to have to be abandoned. Looking at the pad, I saw no sign of an instability. And unfortunately, I fixed more than one dam and Tails Pond and so on in my life that was unstable. We saw none of those signs here. So took a D10 and made a big trench in this pad in the worst area. We got down about 10 feet above liner, brought in SRK. We did a thorough geotechnical analysis and they concurred that, yeah, this pad can go. What we needed to do was mix rock with clay. That was the most serious issue out here. Those of you who have been to Pan, and I know many in this room have, clay ore at Pan is a very serious issue. And if you treat it right, it will treat you right. If you don't, it will not treat you right. It's kind of like your wife. So treat it right. So we started to do that. And we reestablished leach, and we reestablished gold production, which began to cut the bleed and allow us to, basically continue our turnaround. We went to serious cap and fluff situations or procedures. And I say serious because prior to us buying the assets, there was some cap and fluff that went on that occurred, but it was not taken seriously for whatever reasons I do not know. But we became very, very serious about it. What is cap and fluff? Basically, you're mixing coarse rock in with the clays. And in our case, we could do it to a 50-50 to 60-40 mix, rock and clay, and retain and again reestablish leach permeability. So we did that. You can see here in this lower picture, ponding and so on, and segregation of the pile that we bought. And this was a result of stacking and end dumping over 50 and 60 feet of run-of-mine material, just going out and dumping it and expecting it to leach. And then the picture on the right basically shows us up there with an excavator, literally rehabilitating this entire pad. You can see the results. What we did, we dumped in 15-foot lifts and dozed so that we actually mixed the coarse ore in with the fines and with the clay. And you can see the picture on the right there that basically shows, hey, this stuff will leach. At this time, we did not bury emitters, and you can see basically where the emitter lines were. But we did reestablish permeability. We did reestablish the ability to leach. In the processing plant, it was amazing. The plant was not fully commissioned. So we went in and finished the commissioning. That's how new this thing was when we bought it. But it was also, again, we were gifted an opportunity. We took advantage of it. We changed reagent addition points. We actually installed samplers where samplers weren't originally, and on and on. I could go on. We improved the regen circuit and so on. But the bottom line is we turned that thing into a real operation. And in doing so, we garnered the support of the people, and the people again became a team. The morale of that operation picked up just almost immediately, and everyone contributed. I'll bet you there was 1,000 latent ideas out there that people wanted to put in place and were just not allowed to even discuss them. We turned that around because again, it takes that team to make things work. So we did that. We instituted proper reporting, shift reporting. I mean, the basics as far as I'm concerned, accountability. We set goals, we set targets, we set measurements. We put in ability to measure. We put in business systems that allowed us to report against progress or progress against plan, that kind of thing. And we put that out for everybody to see. So it was a very, as I say, inclusive, open. The word today is transparent, but that's the way we ran the operation. And we reduced our costs tremendously. One of the big things, we commissioned the lab. There was, and we had a lab that was built. Was it the best design? No, we talked about that with the people that did it. They know who they are, but we changed it a little bit with their help, I will say. And what happened? That allowed us to reduce our cost over $10,000 a week just by having an on-site lab. It allowed us to then go out and do some proper things in the mine. We needed to open up the the North Pit to enable a source of rock, because that's where the rock came from. Again, we hired more people, experienced mine planners. We put geologists in the pit. What a concept. I remember doing that at a place called Newmont, Carlin 1, a few years ago. And it paid us dividends there, and it paid big dividends here. We put supervision in the pit. What do you mean? We had a contract miner, Leadcore, and I'm going to mention the name because as far as I'm concerned, Leadcore did us a great job. Without their effort and without their support and without their interaction, I'm not sure we would have turned that thing around the way we did. We did all T&M, time and materials, contract mining. Some people say, my gosh, that's crazy. To me, I would never do it any other way. I've never seen a mine where we had a mine plan good enough to do a unit rate contract. And I used to be a contract miner, and I'd love to do a unit rate contract because I know what the C and change. C equals change order. And that's the same C we use in construction. So anyway, the bottom line is by managing that style contract, we were able to put out mining costs that were probably the envy of the neighborhood, if you will. And we managed that contract very, very well. We worked very closely together. The band suffered from a write-down of resources. Part of that write-down, in my view, is because the sampling techniques for the blast holes was absolutely abysmal when we took it over. And in these Carlin-style ores, you will learn, if you haven't, that the fines carry a 2 to 3 multiple of grade as compared to the coarse. And if you don't get a sample that represents basically the ore, then you're going to underestimate what you're mining. We fixed that. We did a major sampling campaign and basically changed the drilling techniques and sampling techniques to allow us to do a decent job of prediction. That paid us dividends big time. In 10 months, we had the operation basically moving and ready to, I would argue, go to the next step. We had the project basically stabilized, but importantly, we did it. We did it with no lost time accidents. We were able to be recognized by the Nevada Mining Association as one of the safe small miners, and we had no environmental compliance issues. I would argue for a little operation that was in trouble, if you will, we did a pretty decent job in a few months. You'll see here basically a graph of of some of the turnaround, if you will. And in the, what is that, 7th or 8th month, we were ready to begin our own mining, which we did. Once we started our own mining, we ramped up from 7, 8 to 10,000 ton a day. We never looked back. We became profitable at plant level in March. We became profitable at corporate level in April. And as far as I'm concerned, to run a business and not have a profit is just not a business. So I was very pleased with this turnaround. Some of you might recognize that tall guy in that picture. That's Larry Buter. I asked Larry to come out and help us with some refinery issues we had. And he's one of the better refinerymen as far as I'm concerned, as well as get some mercury issues we had under control. And he was a big player in both of those. Larry and I we went to college together, so we've been together a few days. And it's a pleasure. It was a pleasure to work with him. Basically, we restarted mining at 10,000 tons a day. We leached gold at that anticipated rate. As I said, we became profitable in March at plant level, company level in April. And those are huge milestones. For a restart, I think we did pretty good. Were we done? No. What did we need to do? We need to turn into a real company. We needed more cost reduction. Now that we had caught the pig, it was time to get the squeal. So we started. We developed more reserves. We wanted to increase our throughput. And we needed to drill and explore to expand the resource base because we only had 3 or 4 years of mining in front of us. So we did those things. And then we also wanted to start development of the nearby Gold Rock project, which I had also acquired with the purchase of this asset. So we did some leach pad expansions. We installed a primary crusher and agglomeration. John Marsden, I don't know if you're in the room, but yes, we did do agglomeration finally, and it helped a hell of a lot. We saw our recoveries go up to the mid to high 60s. And for a run-of-mine operation, that wasn't too bad. As I say, we increased our drilling, exploration drilling, development drilling as well. We then said, okay, now let's get this mining up to a better rate. So we wanted to go to 14,000 tons a day. Why did we do that? We needed a bigger divisor. We needed to cut our costs more. We needed to make more revenue, and we were able to do that. We expanded the leach pad in 2017 from a capacity of 9.2 million to 22.2 million tons. Again, these are small. I know I've run some big operations you guys may have heard of. And I know what this is, but it was still a good challenge and a nice size to make a little bit of money. 2021, we went from 22 to 36.2 million tons. And we're still looking, we're now planning our next phase of the expansion for this operation. We've done enough drilling on the site. We've always replaced reserves. I speak reserves. And we've added years to the mine life. So now they're in the process of doing the next NEPA action to actually expand the plan of operations. I think eventually this mine will be what I thought it could always be. And I'll be surprised if it doesn't do a couple million ounces before its life is over. Again, we installed and commissioned the primary crushing in 2019. It's a mobile plant. It's nothing fancy, but it works. And now we're in the process of evaluating, let's do it. Should we be putting in a secondary crush at these gold prices? It makes a lot of sense. You can see here that the left portion of this graph was basically solution flow to the pad. And once we stabilized that, we've never looked back. Continuous improvement. One of the things, one of the guys made the attachment that goes on that D6 there in the picture for laying leach pads. We can now pipe, and I say they. I haven't been on this operation day to day for 3 or 4 years, so I got to give them all the credit. They can now pipe a cell, which 200 by 200 feet in about 4 hours, and we're in production. So it's a good thing. Basically, we reduced in-place inventory. That's huge. Five years later, we had a celebration of our 5th year and expansion of our leach pad. And this was a picture of all the folks that made that happen. The truck in the background is a symbolic first load onto that leach pad. That was a fun day. While we were doing the above, we also had to make a real company out of this thing. So in 2017, we acquired Fiore Gold and listed on the Vancouver Stock Exchange. Excuse me, the Toronto Stock Exchange. I'm too old. Those of you don't even know there was a Vancouver exchange, many in this room. But we listed on the TSX, on the Venture Exchange, and that changed our ability to raise money. In And we started doing more drilling, more development at Gold Rock, more basically working capital we could put into the operations at Pan and make a good stable company. We never did really get to a decent market cap for lots of reasons. One of which we were always a small outfit, 45,000 ounces a year, but very profitable. We could make 15 to 20 million a year on those ounces, which is pretty damn good. But we're just, it's too small a place to be in the market. We knew we needed to grow. So we were out looking. In the process of looking, we got looked at. Calibre purchased the company in January of 2022. And Calibre has operations in Nicaragua and had a few, 90 to 100 million in cash. We had 20, 25 million in cash. So it made a good sense, a good thing to do. They had the same mindset that we had as far as creating that mid-tier. Indeed, Darren Hall worked with me, for me at one time. Darren is the CEO. And it was one of those pleasures again to get back with Darren. He carried me around the room when we got back together. It was kind of fun. And then you can see I'm going to switch to Calibre style slides now because they're the owner. They asked me to stick around for a little bit to help them through a transition. I agreed to do that. And basically, they, like I say, they've got the 3 operations in Nicaragua. They have the Nevada operation. And then we also bought the Golden Eagle operation in that same bankruptcy purchase. Golden Eagle is a couple million ounce project in Washington State. And as John Meyer and I were speaking last night, it's probably one of the second or third toughest projects to permit in the country, but someday it'll happen. But basically, Calibre now has a good Nevada platform from which to operate. They've got the Pan Mine, we've got the Gold Rock project, and we also picked up Illapah in the mix over the years. Illapah was mined a little bit at one time, and it's another project that likely has a good rebirth, if you will, particularly at today's gold prices. So that's next, or going to be soon on the agenda. I shouldn't say next. We have good organic growth at Pan. I'm not going to read the numbers. If you go to their website and such, you can see what the resources are. We've grown them. They're growing even more. We're in the process now of doing another updated technical report. And I look for that to continue, as I say, down the road. We're now finding numerous gold hits outside the plan of operations area, and we'll be amending for that reason. Good organic growth at Gold Rock. There's an oxide leach at Gold Rock, as well as there'll probably be a milling situation occurring at Gold Rock. Gold Rock was almost federally permitted when we bought it. It is now fully federally permitted, and we're actually in the state permitting process. And that'll be something to keep your eyes on as we go forward. Again, you'll see a number of targets here. The blue area on this picture is where we now have a resource. I think it was around, I don't remember the numbers, check them out, someplace between 500 and 750,000 ounces. But we've expanded that now, and the green areas are where we're finding gold and drilling more. The Golden Eagle project, as I said, is in Washington State. It's a couple million ounces. It's a nice grade, a couple gram, and eventually will become a mine. I see a flow sheet here very similar to the Hale flow sheet before we're done, and I think it can be a real money maker. And with that, and the technical difficulties over, that's part of being the warm up, I want to thank you guys for the time, for the listening, and I wish you all the best with everything you do. And maybe one day you can pick up one of these little assets and have some fun with it. In the meantime, my wife and I actually told her I will try to retire at the end of this year, and that'll be the 6th time, I think. So maybe I'll get it done. But at my age, maybe I should think about it. So thank you again. Yes. Questions?
If there are questions, we have a few minutes and we could surely take a few questions.
John Marsden, are you out there? Why did you say we shouldn't do pan? There you go. Well, I think the guys fixed it. They just needed a chance. It was actually more mixing of the run of mine. We didn't start agglomerating until we went through the primary crush. And then we did it in belts. I'm unlike Dan and Carl and some others in this room. I'm a fan of belt agglomeration because we don't really agglomerate, we conglomerate. And that seems to work for us. So.
Yeah, I mean, my comment would be you're to be congratulated on making a very, very difficult project work at a small scale, and that takes a lot of talent and a lot of really good coordination.
Thank you, John. From you, that means a lot. Thank you very, very much. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
I've got a question. You know, it sounds to me like team building was the piece here. And so did you go out and hire all the people you know, or was it basically that they helped you find other team members, or how did you manage that? Because it seems to me that was key to what you did here.
Well, I guess I'm lucky. I have a lot of insane friends, and maybe they were desperate. Who knows? Because desperation, causes people to do many, many things. No, seriously. I would say that I had a few key hires. Ross, obviously our son Eric, who had worked with me in 3 different adventures before this, I should say, and we were, I would argue, reasonably successful. Building plants all over the world on our own and doing a bit of construction and underground mining and so on. But, and then Andy Britton, I'm going to give a lot of credit to Andy because Andy is wired into the Ely and Nevada community. And he brought a lot of good people with him from the Robinson operation, whatever they call themselves now. And so I would argue it's like any place I've ever been, Dirk. It's networking. And I think it's also, and again, I'm going to pick on Carl a minute. It's or on some of that. Well, here's Arthur. He's in the room someplace, I'm sure. Anyway, different people that have worked with me or against me or for me or whatever the words are at different times. If you're trying to get something done and you really believe in what you're doing, I think people will then say, hey, let's try to get this done. And let's make a difference here. And really, I think that's the key. Empowering you people, we call it that. I don't think I ever knew that damn word at the time. Or I would argue expectations. I expected people to perform. Give them the tools, let them perform. And then that spreads. The first time I met John Marsden on the leach tanks of East Fontaine, we were commenting this morning. I don't know. There's just something I could see and feel in John that said, hey, that's the guy I'd love to have on my team. And it's the way it was with these guys. We just believed.
You said you sorted out the permeability by blending the run-of-mine ores. Can you talk about how you did that, what how you defined ratios, how you actually did the blending?
Yeah. Again, also did a little bit of shooting difference. Blasting, excuse me. I better put that in those words in this market today. But we basically went up and started blasting to about a minus 80% minus 7-inch. Could you do finer? Yes. Although I will say, be careful with that quick yes in Carlin formations because they shoot different. I've shot a lot of rock all over the world and they don't shoot like a limestone or a sandstone or some of the igneous stuff. You can't do as much powder factor work as you think you can do and drill hole spacing work as you think you can do. So we were about 80% minus 7-inch. And basically, we ran some tests. I mean, that was the bottom line. You can't predict this stuff. So we ran a series of tests looking at permeability in large columns as well, and also just permeability testing, and came up with that basic 50-50 to 60-40 ratio as being our mix. It wasn't any clairvoyance or anything like that. It's called, there's a word I use. It's another 4-letter word. I'm good at those. It's called work. And that's the only way I know how to do things, because I'm not endowed with what a lot of people are in this room. And that's a lot of brains. I just have to work hard. And that's through that work.